All right, looks like we are live. So those who are joining, you get to see how the family gathers. This is a family convening on the eve of the most consequential election in our lifetime. There's much going on nationally, and we thought it important because of the significance of this moment that we would all convene at the calling of Reverend Jesse Jackson and those who are part of this coalition of stakeholders who are vested and invested in making sure that the most precious right that any citizen has is protected, and that is the right to vote. On tomorrow, it is election day, and so for the faith leaders that are joining and those who will see this video later, we wanted to have a conversation so that we could give some final instructions. This is the pep rally before the big game, which is tomorrow at the opening of the polls. It will run all day. When the polls close, we will still likely have more work to do, but we want to make sure that everybody that has an interest, a desire, even an issue that is on the ballot tomorrow has a right to cast that ballot. So here's what we're going to do tonight, because we know that time is precious. We're going to hear from those who have been a part of leading a national effort to make sure that the voting rights of every eligible voter are protected. And we're going to move through and then give some instructions that will help you to know as faith leaders how you can support, particularly as poll watchers on tomorrow, to make sure that there are no disruptions to the sacred act of voting across the country. I'm Todd Yeary. I'm the Senior Vice President of Rainbow Push and Chief of the Washington Bureau. It's my privilege to welcome all of you to this conversation tonight. And let me start by appreciating our fearless leader, who for over 60 years has been at the vanguard of this work that we call civil rights and social justice. And so I think it is only fitting that we yield to the one who is convening us tonight to hear from him, to frame the issue and to help us to understand the significance of this moment. This evening, it is my honor to present to all of us our leader, our champion, our Moses, if you will, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. Reverend, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, my brother. Oh, Barbara online. Let me suggest this to you. Number one, the voting season, not just a voting season, not just a voting day. And that's a good thing. Secondly, is that we're in Chicago, Illinois. You have the right to bring a precinct into the prison, into the jail. All these cities are full of youth in jail, not convicted. They have the right to vote. And so they should have a precinct so they can vote. About 5,000 youth at Cook County Jail will be voting between now and tomorrow because of that effort. That should be all around the country. Secondly, I thought the other day, Barbara, I said to one of the youth in jail, man, you should vote. Vote for. I said, well, if you upset all the white jurors, do you want to about your neighbor? Yeah, on neighbor. I said, well, only those who vote conservative juries. I said, man, you got a right to vote for the judge. Yeah, you got a right to vote for the judge, state's attorney. The point is, you keep talking about kind of Biden coming up top. Bottom up, people must identify their interest in voting. First of all, vote for tax cuts, they identify their interest. I'm telling you that tomorrow is the most critical day in our lifetime, but since Jefferson Davis and Abraham Lincoln a century ago. Because they're building up putting these billboards, plywood on these stores. They're preparing for demonstrators, civil rights demonstrators. If we win, we will have no reason to go downtown. They're preparing for these AK-47. These white people have a different view of civil rights than we do. Now, the king is our godfather, Jefferson Davis is theirs. So the fear that white people with these guns will start shooting up downtown, start shooting people. That means an extremely violent moment. That's why Reverend Yeary, your commitment to make ministers stand back at polls tomorrow in their uniforms and their robes, so profound. Is a way of saying, people, we protect our flock. Thank you, and God bless you. I'll be watching the rest of it. Thank you, God bless you, dear.
Thank you, Reverend Jackson, for helping us understand the significance of this moment. We certainly heed your voice and your wisdom to help us to navigate this very challenging time with the pushback, but an important time in terms of the cry and the calls for justice. So we certainly stand on your shoulders and we rely on your guidance. At this time, I certainly want to acknowledge the chair of our Rainbow Push board and the president, current president of the National Bar Association, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, to bring greetings and to offer her perspective on this moment.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Attorney Todd Yeary, for all that you do and the magnificent work that you've done in pulling together this and so many other webinars, panels, and community engagement events. We just thank you for all that you do. So I'm speaking, I have two hats on today as chair of the board of Rainbow Push, you know, to have had the pleasure and the honor of working alongside Reverend Jackson for 32 of my 33 years as a lawyer is just, for me, outstanding. It's beyond what I can put into words, and to be amongst a living legend today, leading the charge and giving us the clarion call to go out and continue every single day, at every minute, to continue to push people to vote and to continue to protect the right to vote is also wonderful for us to all experience. And so I say to Reverend Jackson, again, thank you for all that you do every day, every single day, morning, noon, and night, for all of us, so that there might be a tomorrow. So we thank you and we stand on your shoulders. So I will just say to everyone, the National Bar Association has followed the clarion call that was given to us by Reverend Jesse Jackson and the late Congressman John Lewis in March of 2020. They told us that Black lawyers needed to protect the right to vote. And I was sworn in on the 29th of July, and that is what we've done. Our engines, our forces, we have over 66,000 African-American lawyers in this country, lawyers, judges, law professors, and law students, and that's who I represent. We formed alliances and partnerships with some critical organizations. First on the list is Rainbow Push Coalition, of course, and next, Transformative Justice Coalition, CEO Barbara Arnwine, CEO and founder, and the chair of the board, Daryl Jones. We formed coalitions with and been working hand in hand with our partners at Advancement Project, the NAACP, and other organizations. And we are playing a major role in the election protection effort. Every Black lawyer that is in this country should know or has heard on some level how important it is for us to protect the right to vote. But it started with the words of our leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and the late John Lewis, as I said, Congressman John Lewis. So, Reverend, I just want to say thank you again to Barbara Arnwine, to Daryl Jones, to Todd Yeary, and to all of the people on this call. Together we stand and we fight to protect the right to vote. And the NBA is going to be there every step of the way, because there's going to be much litigation, we know, after tomorrow. And so the lawyers have to be poised, not just to protect the right to vote now, but to be there tomorrow, after the last vote is in, to be counted. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we certainly appreciate your leadership and the National Bar Association's partnership in protecting the right to vote. And the fight is going to be on. We already know that we're going to be at this for a while. So thank you in advance for all of the countless hours that will be put forth to make sure that this election outcome is protected and the integrity is maintained. You mentioned Attorney Barbara Arnwine. She is our Harriet Tubman of this moment, and our chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Daryl Jones. They are in tandem. We sent separate links, but they decided they would tag team. And so I'm just going to say, there you are. You got them both in the same frame. You got a 2-for-1 right here. So I'm going to just say both of them right there. Get the floor. Attorney Barbara Arnwine, Attorney Daryl Jones, thank you for your leadership. Will you all set the stage, set the table for us about where we are and what's going to take place in the next several days?
Let's sure say amen.
Amen.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much, Reverend Jackson, for your amazing leadership, for keeping us all on this battlefield. Yes, there is a war for the vote, and there's a war to preserve our democracy, but the troops are out. We're prepared to do the work. I want to say, all my thanks and love to our president of the National Bar Association, the CK Hoffler, for pulling together the part of the military that we will call the army of lawyers, who have been helping and will be holding it down tomorrow. And will be doing serious work all over the nation. And I want to give, a lot of praise and thanks to Reverend Todd Yeary for his leadership. He's a double, he's a 2-4. He is both a lawyer and he's also a member of the clergy. So he comes to us with a lot of, ammunition for the time that we're in. And I really want to give a special thanks to Dr. Karen McRae, who once she heard Prophet Daryl Jones talking about this concept of clergy to the polls, that she took it upon herself to really do the hard work of putting together the website and coming up with the outline of the concept to fill it out. And we are really indebted to her for her battle plan. But what I want to say to everyone is that lawyers, we can do what we do best, right? We do good legal education, we do very strong representation, and we do wonderful litigation. But it's the clergy who we need in this moment, because there's a special role that only the clergy can hold. We say that only lawyers can go into courts, right? And litigate cases to their fullest, based upon their training, based upon their certification. But it's the clergy who can stand with moral authority, because when it comes to lawyers, that's not what we're known for. We're not known for being the moral authority of this nation. It is the clergy who, like Dr. King, and so many who have moved us from one point of abject denial and injustice to justice, who has summoned the moral courage of the nation to be better than it really ever wanted to be, and to make our aspirations come into fruition. So we are calling on clergy to be present tomorrow, because your moral presence at the polls do two things. One, it comforts the dejected. And when you've been online and waiting for 2 and 3 hours, you are dejected, let me assure you. You need somebody who can pray for you. You need somebody who can pray with you. You need somebody who can lead you in spiritual renewal and excitement. You need somebody who cares and can comfort you. But also, we need clergy to be there to tamp down emotions, to make sure that voter intimidation is not something that happens, that they are there to actually be a moral presence, to make people realize that there are certain lines that we don't cross. And voting, as we said, is so sacred. And it's only natural that clergy should be there in their full vestments to show support and comfort for the masses of voters who so desperately need help. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Daryl Jones, who, of course, as he has done with so much of our work, he has come up, he has been the conceptualizer, he has been the inspiration, he has been the creative force. And it is my pleasure to turn it over to the chair of the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition, one of our nation's brightest, most amazing lawyers, none other than Daryl D. Jones.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate the very kind introduction. I think that when I think back to what we're doing here, it's all about collaboration. And, I really want to thank Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push for joining with us and partnering with us in this effort. I want to thank the National Bar Association and CK Hoffler. When we started out, we were doing our John Lewis Good Trouble Voter Awareness March series. And we were asking people, we were into the neighborhoods, into the grassroots, and we were asking people in challenged communities to trust us, to come vote with us, to come march with us, to register and vote. That was followed by our reach out to the National Bar Association. And the National Bar Association, we said, well, we're asking these people to risk themselves in these challenged communities to vote. Will you stand with them in the courtroom when they're challenged?
Yes.
And in the words of President Hoffler, we got their back. And that's what she said. We got their back. You get them out there. We're the Black lawyers. We represent some 1% of all the attorneys in the country. We have a responsibility to have their back, and we will charge them up to get them out there. So that was really appreciative. This is that collaborative effort that we're talking about. But there was a third pier to this pyramid. The third pier to this triangle it could come from nowhere else other than Rainbow Push. It could come from no one else other than Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push. The third tier of that triangle says, we need someone out there to be certain that we got them to the polls, that they're safe while they're there, that someone is protecting them, that there's a spirit that's with them. And that's what this does here this evening, this push to the polls, the clergy to the polls. We know that in Charlottesville, Virginia, so long as the clergy were present, there were no problems. Everything was calm. It wasn't until the clergy had left the Charlottesville, Virginia area that the Heather Myers situation then occurred. So with that type of understanding, it is that having
Milwaukee Radio
polls in this situation will keep things calm, will keep the peace. It'll allow people to feel confident that they will be fairly represented and safely in place and spiritually guided. So, we're very thankful for that. And I think this is the part of the triangle that will complete this. And, I just end on this note. And when Barbara Arnwine and I had the opportunity to go to Capitol Hill, and we were at the U.S. Capitol to pay homage to the remains of John Lewis. And as we went to the steps of the Capitol, we took a knee and we made a promise that we would not let the spirit, the work of John Lewis go unnoticed, that we would pick up the torch and carry it forward to the best of our ability. And I say to everyone that's here this evening, everyone that will be volunteering with regards to helping out in this election, if not us, who? And if not now, when? This is our moment. This is our calling. This is what they call the beloved community. The question is, are we willing to work forward? And I think your presence here indicates that we all are. So I want to thank everyone for volunteering, for being part of this training program. A special thanks to Dr. Karen McCrae for her tireless effort to put stuff together here and to organize and to work in partnership with the hard work of who I call my brother from Baltimore, Reverend Dr. Todd Geary. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Jones, and thank you to our fearless founder, CEO, executive director, all that and more. Attorney Barbara Arnwine, thank you for your support and participation in this effort. Dr. Karen McCrae has been appointed. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm excited about us. I'm doing radio stations in Milwaukee and Detroit and Philadelphia. So please excuse me. I'm the back-to-back radio stations, Milwaukee, Kenosha, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. So let's pull out the stops tomorrow, guys. Let's work hard tomorrow and celebrate on Wednesday.
You are our leader. Lead on, sir. And
God
we will
bless you.
carry on. Thank you.
By the way, Trump, he released Kwame Kilpatrick from jail today, clemency, on his blackmail thing. For the record, he's released 47 people, 9 are black, 300 judges, all 300 white. So we just thank God he's out of jail. Don't confuse him, it represents some new dynamic. Okay, y'all.
All right, Reverend.
Thank you, Reverend.
We are clear. Dr. Karen McCray, you have taken point in a lot of this coordination. The floor is yours to help kind of frame the moment and chart the course, and then we'll walk through the slides and the instruction with our clergy colleagues for tomorrow. Dr. Karen McCray.
Thank you, Reverend Yeri. This is a full circle moment for me, because when I first started in Washington, D.C. with the Congressional Black Caucus, one of the first people I met was Reverend Jackson, and I started the same year as John Lewis and Kwesi and Fume were indoctrinated into the CBC. So this is a full circle moment for me. But I wanted to share with you, I'm also the CEO of the National Organization of Concerned Black Men and a board member of the Transformative Justice Coalition. So it's been an honor to follow the leadership of both Daryl and Barbara in this endeavor. The Clergy to the Polls is a new initiative where we're having clergy make a moral presence at the polling sites in 21 key states. We have about 11 of them, excuse me, now 15 of them covered as of today. So we're working tirelessly. I'll be on another call this afternoon where we have about 700 polling places now covered in Baltimore with clergy, which is a good thing. We partnered with the Association of Clergy in that Baptist clergy in Philadelphia. So we're excited about that. And we're forging our way through Pennsylvania. The key thing is it's a consortium, a volunteer consortium of rabbis, imams, ministers, all types of clergy who will come together and have a moral presence across the country in those 21 states at various polling places. We've identified key African-American polling places as well as their own polling places that had key markets as well too. We're asking them not just to show up, but to show up in their full regalia. Because as what Chairman Daryl said earlier, is that when they have a presence, it lessens the temperature. So we're asking them to make their presence felt through their regalia, to offer assistance where needed. We've also included the introduction of student leaders as well too, who will assist those seniors who may not be able, or elderly who can't, or those who are disabled who can't get to the front of the line. So we're asking them to stand in their stead until their turn comes and walk to the front of the line and exchange places with them and offer them a seat or be of assistance in that way. We've had training. This is a part of that training as well too, that outreach, so that people know that the clergy will have a presence. Transformative Justice Coalition has taken the lead on ensuring that presence. And we're here for the long haul, whatever it takes, because the real work begins on November 3rd. So we're making sure that all of this mobilization is intact as we move forward. Thank you, Reverend Yeri.
Well, thank you, Dr. Karen McCray, for your leadership and for your coordination and your inspiration in this moment. So this is an important time, and I think this effort will certainly yield tremendous results. We know that time is precious and there are other conversations going on. I'm going to ask that our technical team will go ahead and pull up the slides, and while they're doing so, for those of you who are joining, we're grateful for all of you and your presence, for the work that you do in your local communities. I want to especially thank some good folks that I've connected with over the last several days. I don't want to start calling out places, but I got to call out the faith leaders from Flint, Michigan, who have been just doing such a tremendous work in the aftermath and in the ongoing efforts around the recovery from the water crisis and their engagement in what is going to be one of the key battleground states on tomorrow night, and that is the state of Michigan. And so Flint is on board and showing up, and so we're grateful for Pastor Moore and for all of the good folks there. Let's talk through what we're going to do, and I hope you will just kind of capture this. As Dr. McCray said, the objective tomorrow is to engage in what we would call the ministry of presence. We've all heard of that before. And it doesn't matter what your faith tradition might be. It doesn't matter whether you say shalom, assalamu alaikum, praise the Lord, or just what's up, right? It's going to be the universal conversation of the presence of people of goodwill and good faith advancing justice. And so wherever that polling place is in your area, we ask that you would go to the website Clergy to the Polls, spell it all out, clergytothepolls.com. We want to get an indication of where you will be on the ground so that we will have an idea of where we've got coverage in polling places across the country. Next slide, please. One, we want to have presence. We want to assist vulnerable voters, but we also want to, I think, as our founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition said, we want to tamp down the emotions. And we know we've seen these instances across the country of voter intimidation or acts that could be a voter intimidation. Your presence is going to help make sure that folks who want to exercise their franchise, their vote, they want to go to the ballot box, can do so without the fear of threat. And so what we want you to understand is the framework. Federal law actually says that no person shall intimidate another person for the purpose of interfering with that person's right to vote or their desire to vote as they may choose. That's federal law. It is federal election in addition to state initiatives. Federal law will apply. And so intimidation, threats, coercion are not proper at these polling places. Some states have their own state laws. And so wherever you are, you need to be aware of what those state laws might be. Voter intimidation, here's the rule. Just across the board, voter intimidation is against the law, full stop, period. Don't have to go any further. And so your presence tomorrow at the polls is going to be critically important to deter. It's going to have a deterrent effect and a reassuring effect on those who want to vote, deterrence to those who would want to disrupt, so that we can make sure that we have full, fair, free elections across the country tomorrow. So just know, as we're observing some of these behaviors and we're giving the Ministry of Presence and Reassurance, those are things we need to be aware of. Next slide, please. So here's what you might see as examples of intimidation. Some folks may question voters, particularly where we have high populations of non-English speaking persons or for persons for whom English may not be their first language. So they'll question about citizenship, or they'll start questioning whether or not folks have a criminal record, or they'll ask for ID when ID is not required. Or they'll come up and present themselves like they are an official of either the Board of Elections or some other government official, or they'll just do all kinds of, we've seen it all, and we're seeing it again. They may put up signage that's improper. They may even get robocalls. We've seen the robocall thing where they'll say, oh, you know, the lines are long, no need to go, or the determination has been made about who won, don't worry about voting. Everybody needs to make sure that they show up, and we need to give that reassurance. So one thing you can do as faith leaders is go ahead. However, we know we're all virtually worshiping to some degree or other. And so we're using technology to reach out to our congregations. I need you to get on your robocall phone blast, yours, not somebody else's, and remind folks that if they have not voted, they need to vote. Some states are still allowing same-day registration and voting. You need to know the rules where you live, but encourage your congregations to get out and vote if they haven't. If they are still holding a mail-in ballot, don't put it in the mail. Don't go for the postmark gimmick because there's still litigation going on. Make sure that they take that ballot to a polling place themselves and drop it off. Put it in the hand of an official in a drop box, whatever might be applicable in your particular jurisdiction. And just be aware of other forms of harassment or threatening presence following folks around. Those are some of the examples, but you know, if you see something, say something. If it isn't well, if it doesn't sit well with you, then raise the issue with someone at that particular polling place, what you're observing, so that we can make sure that we eliminate and mitigate for those kinds of issues on tomorrow. Next slide, please. Now, this is a big one because we've seen it across the country, this whole thing about militias and what we've heard about, you know, stand back and stand by and all of that stuff, right? So here's what I need you to understand. Not all states explicitly prohibit guns at or near polling places, right? But if you use the gun in a menacing sort of way, that's kind of the intimidation trigger, it's still illegal. So you just want to kind of watch out for that. Going to vote while someone has a firearm may not be illegal, but loitering while brandishing may be illegal. Just pay attention to what's going on around the polling places. And just know, if you have a question, if you're not sure what's proper, the workers at the polling stations, the members of the Board of Elections, they know the rules, they know the law, and they should be enforcing and making sure that the law is applied as folks are voting on tomorrow. Next slide, please. So here's another thing that happens where we've got polling places. Many jurisdictions have reduced the number of polling places. The lines are going to be long. There are going to be some challenges for folks who have physical or other limitations. And so here's what we need you to know about voters with disabilities or those who have limited English proficiency, right? Voters with disabilities can get help with voting from any person they choose, as long as it's not their employer or an agent of the voter's employer if they're employed or union. So they can have assistance with the voting process, someone that they choose on tomorrow. Bear that in mind. Sometimes they will try to limit that someone who needs assistance can't take assistance with them into the voting booth. Federal law allows for that to happen, a person of their choosing. And they cannot be turned away simply because someone thinks they don't have the capacity to vote. This is not where folks start evaluating whether or not folks have the ability. If they have the willingness and they're registered, they should be allowed to vote. No exceptions, full stop. Next slide, please. Now, pay attention to this, because here's what we want you to do tomorrow as a poll watcher. First of all, do not put yourself in harm's way, right? Be prudent in how you monitor and be very prudent in how you may address issues that come up, right? Do not intervene. If it's going to be dangerous, it's going to be physically threatening to you, emotionally threatening to you or anybody else, or if it may just escalate tension. If you are recognizing that there's some things going on, report it to whoever is in charge of the polling place from the Board of Elections. They have the ultimate responsibility of making sure that things go well. If things continue to rise and you can't get to somebody at the poll, remember, calling the local authorities is an option. Call the police, because they ultimately can come resolve any, or they should be able to come and resolve any issues that happen, even though we've seen something contrary to that in Graham, North Carolina, even over the last several days. Follow the reasonable processes that we would normally do to make sure that we tamp down the tensions, as Attorney Barbara Arnwine has said. Now, do not publicize the event. There are a lot of folks who are trolling social media. If an issue comes up, don't start posting it and drawing unnecessary attention to it, because it may just inflame further the tensions going on the site. Report it. If you need to just make general notes to document it for follow-up, do it on whatever if you got a pad, write it down. If you're going to put it in your phone, just type it out so that you have the information and can reference it. It will help if there are issues, but whatever you do, don't put it on social media and see what's what. I see I'm getting some messages, so I'm going to try to read them. Madam Chair, thank you. I see you got to run. I know there are things going on. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the president of the National Bar Association, thank you for your presence and your leadership. Go lead the lawyers as we keep moving.
I just want to say, Todd, to our clergy, to those, you all bring peace at the polls, and that's what we need. But we are with you hand in hand, and we will lock arms together so that we can protect the right to vote. So thank you to everyone. Todd, thank you. Reverend Jackson, Rainbow Push, love you all. We'll see you on the other side of our victory. All right.
Love you. Bye. Love you more, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right.
All right. So don't publicize on social media. Document, report to the polling officials, the poll officials. Call 911 if necessary. If you feel that there's an escalation of tensions or the potential for violence or the threatening presence of folks intimidating other voters. Next slide, please. Now, write these numbers down. In addition to the tracking I just meant, right? Reporting to poll workers, reporting to the Board of Elections, reporting to the law enforcement authorities. As Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the chair of Rainbow Push and president of National Bar just said, the lawyers are on call. So the election protection hotline number that you need to have, if you see something, say something. 1-866-OUR-VOTE. 1-866-OUR-VOTE, or for our Spanish-speaking friends, 1-888-VEY whatever. I didn't take Spanish, I took French, so y'all pray my strength. And somebody, I think Dr. McCrae, you actually have figured out what those corresponding numbers are, because I don't have my phone to kind of type it out. So if we can make sure that we actually put the number in, but just remember 1-866, our vote is where you start. The other is the U.S. Department of Justice Voting Rights Hotline. Now, I know there's a lot of angst about the current Department of Justice, but the one thing we have to do is we have to create a record. If these incidences are coming up, we got to report them so that we can begin the process of documentation in the event that there's some sort of remediation or follow-up that's required by the federal government as federal elections are there. To Attorney Barbara Arnwine and Chair Darrell Jones, I know you all are running to another call too. Dr. McCrae is going to make sure that I stay on track, and we're going to get through it. Thank you for your presence. So write these numbers down: Election Protection Hotline number, the Department of Justice Voting Rights Hotline number, and don't forget the local and state officials in your area, including poll workers on site. Make sure that if you see any signs, as a matter of fact, the first thing you might want to do before you start calling is report it to those who are responsible for what's happening on the ground where you are, so that they can address those issues immediately. Some of the other local officials are listed there, but that's the general frame. And remember, this webinar will be made available on demand, so you can go back and get the information. All right, next slide, please. Here's what it's all about. This election is about what? We've got a lot at stake. A lot of times we get trapped in the personalities. We got to vote. As you are encouraging your folks to vote, vote down the ballot, vote every single thing. Make sure that they understand, while all of our attention has been captivated by what's happening in the competition for the presidency, there are other issues on the ballot, other elected offices that have some direct impacts on our communities that we've got to make sure that we vote down the ballot, front and back. Make sure that you look at everything that's there and make sure that you're ready to go. Now, while we're doing this, let me also just kind of say that we've talked about being safe and protected in the midst of a pandemic. We've got to make sure, please make sure you have your mask, make sure you have hand sanitizer, make sure that your phones are charged, make sure that you dress for the calendar, not just for the forecast, right? The weather can change quickly. It's cool in parts of the country and windy in others. Make sure that you are ready, because there are two things that we're fighting simultaneously, and neither of them can we see. We cannot see the spread of this virus known as COVID-19, and we are fighting the invisible enemy of systemic racism that has been awakened across the country. The dinosaurs have come back. So we need to make sure that we vote as if our lives depend on it, because they do. Now, that's the quick flyover. This is going to be made available on demand, so you can see what we're asking of you. Call your colleagues, call your friends. There's student leaders, as Dr. McCrae mentioned, that are also being engaged, but go to clergytothepolls.com and make sure that we are aware. We want to know where you are. We want to make sure that you've got the support that you need. We want to be able to coordinate and communicate with you on tomorrow, so that we make sure that tomorrow, despite all that we've seen, every effort, every trick that's been used, we want to make sure that every person who is eligible to vote and wants to vote has that opportunity to vote, no questions asked. With that, we know we've got time. I want to yield back to Dr. McCrae for any final thoughts that she might have, and then we're going to get you all ready, get some rest tonight. Oh, if you're going to be waiting in line a long time tomorrow, or you think, water and something to sustain you, right? Because leaving the line is not the option, right? So I want to make sure that everything, if you got to do like we used to do when my mama used to put us on the Trailways bus, get you some fried chicken, wrap that bread around it while it's hot, let that grease stick make that bread stick to that chicken and put it in your bag and do what you need to do. Now, don't make it real salty because it'll make you thirsty. I need you to make sure that you have some water, but we got to be ready because the fight is on and this fight is real. With that, Dr. McCray.
No, you're absolutely right. The only thing I would add is that the 866, our vote is 866-687-8638. It's in the chat. I will also put my number in the chat as well too, if there are any questions about tomorrow, but we just want everybody to be safe and do what we can to make sure we get this put out.
Well, thank you, Dr. McCray, for your leadership. Let me thank the team behind the scenes, the Rainbow Push team that have helped pull this together to make sure that we were able to have this conversation on short notice. So Rose Glenn, Alana Ford, Dr. Deborah Furholden is off camera. She's back there doing her thing. Everybody's come together to make this work. We've got to lean on each other in this moment. And so let me thank all of you. My apologies for looking down. They've been telling me don't stop this. To our colleague imams on this call, assalamu alaikum to you. Thank you for joining. Justice is a universal attribute. Every faith tradition has a justice component to it. We are grateful for your presence. We will keep you posted on follow-up post-election to make sure we can debrief and download and talk about what the next steps are. A lot of this is going to be dynamic and organic because we're not really sure what to anticipate. We're just kind of anticipating a whole lot across the board. One last frame for you before we bid you good evening. There is in the Christian canon, in the Gospels, a story about a man who was laid by the pool of Bethesda. He said he laid there waiting for an angel of the Lord to stir the water, because at a certain season, the angel would come and trouble the water so that the first to get down would be healed. I want to say to you that this is that certain season.
Yes.
But it's not just for an individual, it's for the entire country. It is time to heal the nation. And you who are angels of the God of the universe in physical presence will be dispatched across the country at polling places near and far to make sure that we are stirring up what has been the mantra of our late mentor and leader, Congressman John Lewis. We are stirring up good trouble. That good trouble is to stir up the waters of justice and righteousness all across the country until the United States becomes what it claims to be: one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I want to thank all of you, Pastor Moore, the Flint crew, all of you across the country. Continue to lead your congregations forward, lead your communities, but we've got to take this fight. We're taking it to the streets, and we're taking it to the streets tomorrow. Remember to pay attention to all of the things that we've laid out for you. Feel free to come back and check this video out. It will be available on demand. Until then, it is my prayer that God will continue to bless you, keep you, and smile upon you with favor and grace. But more than anything else, walk in the power that God has given to all of you. With that, let's go, let's win, and we'll see you on the other side of victory. Have a good evening.